host Nelson with Cascade Media Group, and we're on our political channel for our weekly update from Councilwoman from the 3rd District, Miss Melissa Robertson. She comes on every week right after the City Council meeting, hot off the press. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. I'm so glad to be with you on today. Today was a very important day at City Hall. We got some really high uh, profile things done today. So
Go
I'm
ahead and
glad to
run it
go.
on down.
So my goal, Kansas City, we always got to write down what our targets and goals are for the week. And so my legislative goal this week was to continue to address the grocery store, to make sure that our store at Linwood and Prospect does not close. And we got one step closer to that today. We did be able to work with the store owners, which is Community Builders KC. They're a community development corporation, they're nonprofit, and they've stepped up to run the grocery store, and we've been able to provide the support for that. The Urban Council came, Mr. Nelson, today to provide some agitation and some disruption. As you know, they have been meeting monthly since July to talk about some of the structural issues at the store, and came down to City Hall today demanding some action and relief, and that the city would do what it said it was going to do. And so we're looking forward to continuing that support. Secondarily, and one of the things that was on everyone's mind right now is who is going to be our next city manager. Our charter requires the mayor to present a candidate, a appointee to be our city manager. And today, the mayor of Kansas City introduced Mario Vasquez and asked for the ratification of him being the city manager. So that is our new city manager. He's been at the city since the 1990s. I think it may have been 1997, but he started as a city planner, which is oftentimes an entry level job for engineers right out of college. And I don't know if he came right out of college, but he certainly started, in that entry level role. And he worked his way up, working on projects such as the Linwood Shopping Center and other projects, and interviewed to be the next city manager. So I want to let the listeners know that there's a new manager for your local municipal government.
All right, let's keep it moving.
Okay. Any other questions? I mean, those are kind of the big ticket
Well,
items today.
I want to talk about one or two things, but I want you to get out the way the things that you deem important. I want to talk about this development further down on Prospect with Pat Clark, Tyson,
Uh-huh.
and the people that are doing that development, and there's some other things that are going on further on the corridor. But uh, are they? What can you tell me about our infrastructure as it relates to Parks and Rec? Because when the new director came on and we did our first interview with him, he was talking about the first thing he was doing was taking an assessment of our infrastructure, and his assessment was that it needed a lot of repair and what have you. Has the city looked at that and our aging sewer system in general?
So you're talking about our parks
Parks
amenities
and it's two
facility
parts.
and
Yeah,
our
yeah,
water
two
facilities with
part
our
infrastructure in
sewer,
general.
our infrastructure. Yeah, so we do have a crumbling infrastructure, and that is denoted by two consent decrees actually that were under One is looking at ADA, the American Disabilities Act, and accessibility on our sidewalks, making sure that people who are in wheelchairs and have physical mobility challenges, that they can utilize our sidewalks. And so that's a sign that, hey, if the federal government's telling you you have a pervasive problem, then you know that that is again an issue that you want to that we actually have to address. And the same with our sewer system. We have a combined sewer system, and the Environmental Protection Agency, believe it was 15 to 20 years ago, came and said, you know, you have to separate your sewer system. Your stormwater cannot be on the same system as your wastewater. And so we're working to separate those two. We just passed another opportunity for us to be able to pay for our sewer system and sanitation system. So that was on the ballot, one of the last ballots of the last two elections that we've voted on. The voters voted to issue more debt that will be paid by ratepayers to help to improve our sewer system. But one of the things that we have to look at, Kansas City, Mr. Nelson, did you know that there's a little known fact that Kansas City is the first city to have a adaptable consent decree with the EPA? Was that something you were aware of?
No. And I think
Okay.
that those are the type of things I think that the reason you come on to just little things and having conversation about these little things that our community and our community organizations need to know so that if it's affecting their neighborhood or what have you, are there anything on housing that you would want to speak on? I think they had something over there by Arthur Bryant's that uh, development there.
Ray Park.
Right. Can
Yes,
you give
there's a
them an
lot going.
update?
I will definitely give an update on Prey Park. We're very excited about that. But just to kind of wrap up the situation regarding the adaptable consent decree, letting your viewers know what that actually means. And so, what that means is that we don't have to separate our sewer system underground totally with large pipes. We can utilize green infrastructure to address our stormwater runoff. And you know, Mr. Nelson, when you run for office, I never knew that I was going to be talking about stormwater runoff and water main replacements and sewers and all of those things. And so, with our adaptable consent decree, we're able to do a lot more green infrastructure. I would encourage every listener. Matter of fact, everyone who emails me who could tell it and lets me know that they went by the VA and visited the green infrastructure project there, I will have something for you. And so if you go by right on the VA on the not on the 35th Street side, but on the northern side, which is, I believe, Linwood Boulevard,
Right.
go there. There's a huge green infrastructure project. You see all this prairie grass that's growing? It is a very, very awesome place to go walk and just enjoy nature. But that is those are certain native plants that capture our stormwater and allows our land to be more resilient during flooding. And so this is really important, Mr. Nelson, because as we have climate change that's happening, right, we have to make sure that folks are protected. And green infrastructure is a natural element to help to protect our homes from flooding and these 100-year floods. And so on 37th and Norton, which I talk about, I think I've spoken about this before, there's going to be one of the largest green infrastructure projects in the city. Right there where they call it the woods, right there on 37th and Norton, So we're very, very excited about that. But you asked about Parade Park. Parade Park is being developed by Flattery and Collins in 12th Street Heritage. They do have a partnership, and they are working on the phases of that. We do have quite a bit of federal money, thanks to Congressman Cleaver, to help to close the gap to do the housing there. And so when you get federal money, you have to, um, in this day and era, there are certain processes that you have to go through to make sure that the land has not been have any Native American um, artifacts or anything like that on it. And so right now they're going through the Indian Nation, some of the protocols that when you receive federal money, when you do development, that you have to go through in order to get the green light. So hopefully that's wrapping up soon. And once that wraps up, because when you're going through that process, Mr. Nelson, you cannot touch anything. You can't, tear anything down. You can't go in and fix it. You have to go through the entire process that is untouched. And so, for that reason, there's been a bit of delay on a groundbreaking. However, the funds are there. They're going to be working on affordable multifamily. They'll be working on senior housing. And then one of the things that I advocated for and championed is some ownership options that are, uh-oh, the automatic lights went off. So hopefully we can, the lights will go back on. Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can get them back on real quick. Hold on. So, Parade Park is well on its way to development. It is going to take some time. I don't have a project schedule. It's going to take some time to get it done, but it is well on its way. One of the things that we, again, advocated for was to make sure that there was some level of ownership because we know that those co ops, being the first African American co-op in the history really, really means something. One of the things that we're going to be doing as well, that 12th Street Heritage is taking the lead on, is collecting stories about Parade Park. There's so many things, so many people that have lived in Parade Park, and we want to do a story collection so that we can harvest, not so that we can preserve those stories and that we can share those stories. And so we'll be looking for opportunities to do that. I will say one other thing happened on Tuesday that does deserve our attention. And when you mentioned off air about Juneteenth, I just want to update everyone about the renaming of Truce Avenue. That was on the agenda on Tuesday. We have been working very, very hard for 3 years to address street names, monuments, and memorials that celebrate oppression, that celebrate individuals who were known slave owners. And we were not successful, Mr. Nelson, in getting the renaming of Truce done. But the fight isn't over. I'm going to continue to work on addressing some of the
Why
challenges that
weren't you
came
able
up.
to get it done? That's what I'd like to know. And all the time, I'm like, who voted against it?
So we had a committee on special committee for legal review. The mayor's the chair, and Andrea Boo is the vice chair. They both voted to hold it off docket. And so when we hold it off docket, that means it just stays in place and there's no movement. And so those are the two individuals who did not vote for it. There were commentary and conversation in the committee about community engagement and also about, waiting for several years in order for the name change to be implemented. And that just, justice delayed is justice denied. And I can't support us waiting for years in order to change the name. And so um, those are some barriers. I'm hoping that we can overcome some of them. However, oftentimes, as African Americans that are in legislative spaces that are, required to, right all of the wrongs, right, that has been done to the Black population, it's impossible. It's impossible. We have to have allies, we have to have support from others. And quite frankly, we should not have to be left with the burden to fix what others broke, right? And so there's some work ahead. I'm tremendously disappointed that we didn't get it over the finish line, but I will continue to work to make this happen. Whether I run out the clock on the city council, this is something that really, really needs to be done. And, I got a little teary eyed on camera, and one of the reporters, Mr. Nelson, said, well, you got a little emotional. I said, yes, because, I'm thinking to myself, like, our kids, the next generation, those people who live on truth, having to write the word truth every day as their address, you know, um, it's a no-brainer that if we are wanting to be a welcoming Kansas City, we're wanting to make sure social justice is done. We
I'm
change the
not
name of the street.
understanding the mayor voting or not voting, holding it. I've got Chris Good. I think he's coming on Monday uh, to talk about this. I think that was upsetting, but where I'm at, I have advocated for our representatives to organize our community and
Mm-hmm.
then have our community speak with one voice, not uh, one or two groups, the whole community, because that affects the whole community. And
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like, again, I go back to a failure of leadership and
Well,
accountability. And when
yeah,
you
and this
go ahead.
yeah, this is something that, when Congressman Cleaver was at City Hall, he tried to change, and so this has been going on for generations, and it's something that needs to get done. And a lot of people are like, well, changing the name isn't going to put any, food on my table, or it's not going to do anything economically transformative for the community. But here's the fact that when you put someone's name on a street, you're celebrating them. You're celebrating him not only as the forefather of founding, he was the first doctor in Kansas City, but you're celebrating the fact of who he was and what he did. And he had 6 slaves on the census. He owned 6 people. Um, and that's not something that we should celebrate. Once you know better, you do better. You put it in a museum. You don't put it on a street name to continue to be celebrated.
I think
So,
that was eloquently spoken. And uh, you sisters Crockett, y'all are really representing on the legislative side uh, when it comes to this injustice to our community because the no, I'm not going to apologize. The white community in general, they act like they don't understand these statues. The South lost the Civil War, and you have all of these statues of these generals and slaveholders, and you. Well, what's wrong with that? Yeah, all right. And I think you're fighting the valiant battle. I just have my differences on how the community leadership and representatives of the community approach the problem because you can't solve this problem the way y'all are trying to solve it. You got to solve it with numbers, and you can't get the numbers until you can connect with
mhm.
your community. And
Yeah,
I
it's a
am
move.
so pleased that you work with us on trying to achieve that goal little by little, because you have to be able to build the coalition. And, again, we're appreciative here at Cascade that you're working with us.
Well, I appreciate you, sir. We have, again, a lot to do. You talked a little bit about housing on the housing front. We talked about Parade Park, and we do have the Housing Trust Fund. We need to really look at having a developers fund for people who, especially if you're in real estate, but folks who came from the community and grew up in the community, and maybe you have access to capital, but not enough to come back and transform your stomping ground. We need to put together a fund to help people come back and develop their neighborhoods. We have in the 37th and Norton area, there are over 200 vacant lots that are owned by the city. So I'm working very hard to address those vacant lots, to get structures on as many of them as we possibly can in terms of housing. But we need that, we need the vision and the capacities and the creativity and the handiwork of our community coming together. The Congressional Black Caucus has been doing a series, especially under the leadership of Congressman Cleaver, about coming back to buy the block. And that's what we really need to be doing. We need to be investing in the land that's available, especially city owned land, right? And we need to be creating those communities that we desire and that we seek. So, housing is a major priority of the third district, and we're working as fast as we possibly can to get structures on the house on those vacant lots. Some of the tangible things that we've done are, holding forums with residents to talk to them about what types of infill housing they would accept in their neighborhood and helping them with neighborhood plans. Right now, the city is in the final stages of pre approved plans. So you don't have to pay an architect to draw up plans for you because those plans are already available at no cost. That's something that is going to be extremely helpful to builders and developers. But to your point, we are still not investing enough in infrastructure for the third district. Housing is infrastructure, and we need to be investing in our roadways, our sidewalks, our street lights, making sure that our alleys are in good repair. When people come to an area and they're looking for development, and all of these things are in disarray, it becomes not only a challenge for the people who live there. Shout out to the Chapmans who, had me over on their front porch, and we looked around and they're like, what do we do to bring up our neighborhood? And residents shouldn't have to do that. They're taxpayers too. But oftentimes I contend, and I get in a lot of trouble for saying this, but Nelson, I don't give
Trouble
a
is
fat
your
rat.
business, sister. I thought
I
you
don't give a fat
knew.
rat. They know I don't get involved in the mentions.
Yeah.
But I don't my concern is that people should not have to come and beg the government to do what it's supposed to do. And this whole idea and culture that because you live in an area that's been disinvested, and because you live in an area where the tax base may not be that of other areas, that you deserve less, that you are less than. And that's the attitude that I oftentimes feel within these four walls of 414 East 12th Street, that Michael Jackson said it best: they don't really care about us. And we have to organize, we have to mobilize, and to say that we're here and we're not taking no for an answer. We are all upset and can't get out of bed because Biden and the Democratic Party is no longer in office. The Biden administration, for the first time ever in history, they did a 70% allocation of federal resources for infrastructure and environmental protection and housing. 70% of the government spend were in these disinvested areas. We loved it. It was overdue. Your municipal government can do the same thing. So stop your weeping and get down to City Hall and demand that a lot of these policies that we benefited for a short period when Biden was in office are things that can be replicated at the municipal level. What stops us from saying, Mr. Nelson, that 70% of all of our water main replacements, or all of our street reconstructions, or all of our sidewalks, or all of our green infrastructure, or all of our parks repair? What stops us from saying that we have waited far too long for this government to respond to us and we need that investment? You talked about parks on I have a huge challenge with our park system and what's happening right now with parks. Number one, the historical neglect and complete disregard. When we talked about Brush Creek and the things that were happening at Brush Creek, Lake 8, Lower Brush Creek, the Lake of the Enshriners, that's right across from our Swope Health Services, right across the street from our grocery store, right next to our Mary Williams Neal Community Center, where there's an amazing, beautiful slide for kids to go outside and play in the pool, is a creek that's full of trash and debris that comes from Johnson County. Yes, the Brush Creek starts in Johnson County and the trash just bounces off and comes and sticks in Brush Creek. We worked, Mr. Nelson, for 4 years, and for 4 years, Parks Department, Water Department kept saying, well, it's your problem. It's your problem. Every meeting. Okay, it's my problem. Oh, next meeting, it's your problem. The games, the gaming and governance and government is so unnecessary. We just had an issue, Mr. Nelson, with Payak, and I am heated because this is an example of what people have to go through. A very concerned citizen went out to her local park in the third district, took a picture of some raggedy benches, and said, "This isn't good enough." Sent it to us. We agreed. You need some new benches, ma'am. We'll get right on that. When we approve PIAC projects, Mr. Nelson, there is, I can't, it's falling apart. There is this book. It's written down in black and white. We have the actual we have the actual project in black and white that we approve every year. Instead of getting the benches for the lady who asked for it, we went and redid the parking lot instead with the money that was supposed to be for the benches. And that's the type of example in which parks, when residents are asking for things and then they go and do whatever they want to do, it's this paternalistic viewpoint that I know what's best for you. And so we're right now fighting to ensure that the parks department does the right thing. I'll say these two things finally. I'm going to get on, well, really three. I'm going to talk about Greg Clyce Community Center. Number one, when they went and took out our baseball field and put in another baseball field, I'm not going to get on that. They, tore up our rubberized track. and we had to fight to get that back. It's disconnected right now, but it was a fight. They just put concrete around it instead of the rubberized track. Well, all of the elders that are around there, we
Because I
we
walked on that track. I would,
yes.
being in the Lincoln building, lunchtime I go to do my workout. I would,
So it was rubberized, and then when they put in the new facility, they put concrete, and we said no, 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 no. You're going to restore it back to a rubberized track. Then the multi-purpose room full of infestation of fleas. 2 years ago, we told them, why would you put carpet in a community center? You know that doesn't work. So we paid for new carpet. It took years to get it. The equipment in there was complete. I mean, it had been in there since it had been rebuilt. I mean, a long
the hot
time.
tub doesn't work.
Yeah. And so these are the things that we have to continue to address. Wow, they did a soccer field for $9 million. And everybody's like, well, why are you upset? The soccer field's in the third district. Because we didn't need a $9 million soccer field. All we needed was a half a million, 500,000 to replace the turf. But World Cup is coming. We need to do this big grand soccer field for the World Cup, while people can't use the hot tub in their community and they can't go work out because all the equipment is broke. And so my grandfather would say, and I'm gonna be quiet here unless you have any more questions.
No, I like what you that where the conversation is going because I have used those facilities. A lot of senior citizens have used it, and when you talk about those bugs, that this was 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago. I wouldn't even use it no more because you go in there and what have you, and I'm like, what are you doing with the money?
What are you doing with the money? And I said, we will not have our third district community meeting here anymore until this floor is fixed. I'm not going to continue. We're not going to continue to do this. And so my grandfather, he would always tell me, Melissa, you don't buy what you want and then beg for what you need. Don't come to me begging for what you need after you went out and squandered your resources on what you wanted. And I oftentimes think about that analogy when I think about the things that we do in this city. We have a $300 million beautiful deck over the highway. $300 million, a deck over a highway. And then, but we can't afford to pay for our bus system. I got to talk about the bus. I need to talk about the bus system as well.
Run the buses down.
So, we are, you know, we have to make some changes, some serious changes in what we value. Um, our bus system is still under attack. Um, we 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 have an agreement. I can't even say it's an ordinance because it's something that hasn't been passed. But to fund the bus system for 5 months. First it was 6 months. Now it's 5 months. I cannot think, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am, Mr. Nelson. The bus system is probably the only vendor or contract that does not have at least a year on their contract. How do you, in
Month
good
by month.
conscience,
That's what
fund
they're
your bus
trying to
system
get
for 5 months?
you. Hold on. Hey, you said from 6 months to 5 months. They want it month by month. Phase you on out.
And these are the challenges that we're dealing with. Shout out to our amalgamated transit union for all the work that they're trying to do to save our bus system. But we are in a challenge. We're in a challenge with high skyrocketing crime. And the skyrocketing crime is because you know, there's this silent kind of like a cold war, if you will, um, with really trying to get our KCPD to come to show up, and to show up. And I'm not saying, I'm trying to be very careful here because I'm not. I will say, let me say this. I'm gonna do this, and when I come on next week, I will give you the results. Um, I want to see from, we'll just pick 2017, the number of speeding violations in terms of tickets that were issued for speeding in 2017 compared to 2024. Because what's happening is, if you're never getting pulled over for speeding, you're just going to drive how you want to drive when you want to drive. If you know that there's certain places in the community, Mr. Nelson, where you knew if you start speeding, oh, it's always a cop car there. I can't speed through there because they always sitting there waiting, right? And so you moderate your behavior based off of, that there's going to be a consequence. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you the difference in terms of the data, because things are really getting out of control where we don't have a jail facility, which is not the fault of the Kansas City Police Department. It is lack of leadership based off of this body in terms of the city council not, years ago going to a modular system when it was KCPD who said, you need to get a modular system in here. Now we're just revisiting that now today. So when there's no consequence, people will wild out of control. And that's part of what we're seeing. Um, but it is also really amplified by this economic distress that people are in. Yes, because of inflation. When the unemployment rate is at 3% in the majority community, it's at 10% in our community, right? I'm not saying I don't have I'm not I don't know have the numbers with
I'd
me,
be talking
but
about 15%, but
yeah,
that's
it's
your
multiplied.
estimate.
And no, I'm not saying, I'm not even saying it else. I'm just giving a comparative analysis. When it's one in our majority in our affluent areas, it's one number. You have to multiply that number when you get to the third district, many parts of the third district. And so there's this whole economic distress that people are under, where at some point the bow is going to break. And so we're in a crisis, and it's going to take some leadership to get to steer the ship.
Well, me personally, I keep going back to it. You can't really get the leadership to do what it's supposed to do until you get the community engaged. Because once they're engaged, then you can give them directions on what to do. This is coming up, and blah, blah, this and blah, blah, that. And see, what I would say on air, I would love to have the resident that wanted the benches to come on the show to talk about that. And I think I've said this to you and other guests. We have this show for not just the city council person to come on, for anybody that has issues that have some valid uh, validity to them that are affecting our community. And if you would, I'd like to bring her on, because you can't repudiate what uh, the people are saying, not what you're saying,
Yeah, no.
secondhand information.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think more and more of that, things will try to straighten the ship. But that's a long process. And as you and myself have talked about, you have to have some type of plan to do that. And even with the grocery store, you have to have a plan. As I was telling Raina Park Shaw, uh, a simple plan, asking the community, hey, we're getting the store back together. Now, we would like for you to shop there once a week or what
Mhm.
have you. And we're going to make sure it has everything you need. But that's attacking the problem in a different way. And I
Mhm.
don't see anyone willing to put any what do they call it? Political capital or what have you,
Mhm.
and tackling some of these issues in a different way. Because once you connect the community, all of the things that you were talking about, then you can move on all of them. You can't move on them until we get an understanding that everybody's got to be in the room.
Mhm.
And not only that, we have to have a plan that makes sense.
Mhm.
And most of us that you can get everybody in the room, but the plans they come up with don't make sense. And like the Panhellenic Council, or one of them councils, I was listening to the brother said that they raised 9 million or 31 million in one day for voter registration, something around the country. And where did it go? What was it for? And he said you could have built 9 schools with that type of money in your
Yeah.
community. And so when you have leadership and they're coming up with plans, but how do those plans really affect the community? And I'm on the mayor right now about holding up him and with this truth stuff, because it doesn't make sense when you say that you for the community, you for justice, and you know that that is an injustice. Whose water are you carrying?
Yeah, and it's really simple. Is A, do street names celebrate? Are they celebratory for the person who holds them? And B, should we, if the answer is yes, then should we be celebrating known slave owners? And if the answer is no, then you have to vote to change the name.
But
And
they
if it's
why would they do that when they know that your constituents are not even aware, and so you can't bring those numbers to bear on them? And
well,
that's
we did and so that's the thing about the whole community engagement argument. Mr. Nelson, we mailed out postcards to everyone along the Truth Corridor, north and south, and we asked them through an online survey if they knew about the Truth name change, if they, hold on. Ah, yeah, so we do. We need to really focus on changing the street name, and we're going to work to continue to do that. So,
so. In closing,
in closing, we want to thank, obviously everyone who's tuning in to this. We need you to be engaged in your city government. You can always email me at melissa.robinson@kcmo.org, melissa.robinson@kcmo.org. Next week, we did introduce a ordinance to talk about finishing our investment in the Promised Place. This is um, a 100% affordable multifamily housing unit off of Olive Street, right there by Prospect. That the working with Canaan Church, they own the land, and we are developing that, working with them to develop that land into to multifamily housing. So I look forward to coming on and talking to you about how that legislation ferreted out. And I want to say a big thank you to Marvin Lyman and everyone who worked on a community benefits agreement from the prospectus plan. We'll be working to codify some of those things as well. And so we should look for that legislation coming up soon too. So please stay in connection with your city government. Melissa.robinson@kcmo.org, melissa.robinson@kcmo.org.
All right. So, as we say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. Good night.
This is brought to you by Kansas City Business Association, working to improve our community.